God's Book, an honest look at the Bible's 7 toughest topics.
In our series on God's Book, we've considered creation stories in Genesis, strange laws in Exodus and Leviticus, warfare and violence in Joshua, and today we reach the most painful subject of them all, suffering. Around 600 BC, God's own people, the Israelites, faced catastrophic defeat and loss in an event known as the Exile. Jerusalem was destroyed by the Babylonian Empire, and most of the Jews were forced from their homeland to live hundreds of miles away in exile in Babylon. If the last session raised the problem of Israel on the attack in the Promised Land, this session is when they come under attack and are evicted from their homeland. Now, no doubt Israel's painful experience of exile will resonate with you at some level. We too are exiles living outside the world we wish to inhabit, a world free from injustice, poverty, crime, cancer, war, taxes and death. The Bible does promise that one day we'll get back there. But in the meantime, life outside Eden is punctuated with pain. So we need to learn how to cope when the Babylonians invade and life is severely disrupted. When suffering hits, it's natural to wonder, why does God allow it to happen? The Bible doesn't shy away from raw emotions. In fact, it publishes numerous angry complaints to the Almighty from hurting people. So whatever we're facing, we have permission to be honest, to lament, and to hold on to hope. Now, when we face suffering, we often ask ourselves why. Why does God allow pain and loss? Why does He let bad things happen to good people? Instead of easy answers or cold logic, the Bible tells a bigger story to frame our questions and challenges. In God's Book, Part 4, I go through the 5 beats of the Bible story to show how they make sense of our suffering. Let me remind you of the headlines. Firstly, creation. God is not the author of suffering. The world He made was good, and so evil and pain are intruders. Secondly, the fall. Much suffering and brokenness comes from human sin, our evil choices. The world is not as it should be, and we are largely responsible. Thirdly, providence. Some suffering remains a mystery. But the Bible insists that God is still sovereign and He works for good. Number 4, Christ. God didn't stay distant. In Jesus, He entered our pain and suffering and took it on Himself. This doesn't resolve all the mysteries. We still don't know the answer to why God allows certain things to happen, but we know what it can't be. It can't be that God doesn't love us. It can't be that He doesn't care. Finally, new creation. Suffering is not the end of the story. One day, God will wipe every tear away. There'll be no more pain or mourning or death. Now, these 5 strong anchors of truth can secure us through life's storms and trials. In a moment, you're going to discuss some Bible passages that were forged through Israel's painful experience of exile. First, Lamentations. This is raw and gritty as the prophet Jeremiah pours out his grief as Jerusalem lies in ruins. But even in lament, he remembers God's compassion as he says, because of the Lord's great love, we're not consumed. Great is your faithfulness. We learn that lament isn't weakness. It's faith being honest and daring to cry out to God. Second, we'll look at Jeremiah, chapter 29, one of the most famous promises in the Bible. I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you. But notice the context. God's people were in exile, far from home, and they were told it would last 70 years. So this promise isn't a quick fix. It's a call to trust God's long-term plans. Now that's a powerful truth for us when living through tough seasons. Third, the prophet Habakkuk looks around and sees nothing improving. No figs, no crops, no livestock. But he says, I'll rejoice in the Lord. This is stubborn, resilient faith. It's not denial or optimism. It's trusting God through thick and thin. And finally, we'll look at the New Testament that gives our suffering an eternal perspective. In 2 Corinthians, Paul says, though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we're being renewed. He calls our troubles light and momentary compared to the eternal glory that is coming. Paul isn't belittling our pain. He endured plenty of it himself. He's simply saying put suffering into perspective by looking at it through the lens of eternity. Now, what does all this mean for us? It means it's okay to bring our questions and our pain honestly to God. The Bible gives us permission to lament. It means God's plans are often longer term than ours. Exile doesn't end overnight, but God is still faithful. And it means we can have gritty faith like Habakkuk, even if the fig tree doesn't bud, yet we will trust. And finally, it means we hold on to hope. Suffering has an expiry date, and new creation is coming. So be honest with one another now. Share where life hurts and where you've glimpsed God's faithfulness. Remember, exile is not the end of the story. God's mercies are new every morning, and his plans for us are good. Let's turn to the Bible and discuss exile and suffering together.